Hi, I'm Marcus, 33, and 3 weeks ago I learned that you can spend $95,000 restoring a classic 1969 convertible for your parents, only to find out they quietly replaced you with a stranger they now call their real son. It began the night I surprised them with the car. I'd tracked that convertible down for months. My dad used to talk about it like it was the only time he'd ever felt free. Before mortgages, before responsibility, before raising kids he apparently didn't like very much. So when my business finally took off, I decided to give him back the thing he loved most. We rolled the garage door open, and my dad froze. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, then he started crying the way men do when they're embarrassed about it, jaw clenched, face tilted slightly upward like he's staring directly into God's LED ring light. My mom hugged me so tight I had to pretend it hurt just so she'd let go. For the first time in, I don't know, maybe ever, they seemed genuinely proud of me. And because pride isn't a feeling I get much from them, I let myself enjoy it. I should have paid attention to the signs though, like how they kept whispering in the kitchen, or how my mom kept checking her phone, or how my dad mentioned they were hosting someone special this weekend. Someone special? I didn't think too hard about it. I should have, because the next day, I walked into my parents' house and saw a pair of men's boots by the door, not my dad's, not mine, new, expensive. Then I heard laughter in the living room, my dad's deep wheezing laugh, the one I used to try my entire childhood to earn, and when I rounded the corner, I saw him. A guy I had never seen before, sitting on my dad's recliner, wearing my dad's old jacket, with my parents beaming at him like he hung the moon. My mom jumped up, clapping her hands. Marcus! Come meet Daniel, he's practically family already. And just like that, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Because my parents didn't just like this stranger. They adored him, more than they ever adored me, and somehow, I was about to find out that my restored 1969 convertible wasn't even the wildest part of what they'd done. Daniel stood and shook my hand like we were meeting at a job fair. He had that polished, suburban rich boy confidence. Perfect teeth, expensive watch, hair that looked like it had personal security. Your parents told me so much about you, he said. We'd known each other for 14 seconds. I glanced at my mom for clarification, because normally she introduces me like this. This is my son Marcus, he's figuring things out. Never mind I run a successful business, never mind I pay half their bills, never mind I just restored a vintage car for them. But Daniel got beaming pride, warm eyes, and hands clasped together like she just met the second coming of Steve Jobs. My dad slapped Daniel on the back. This kid's a genius, bought me some parts at the auction last month for a steal, knows cars better than anyone his age. Excuse me, kid, genius, auction? My parents hadn't been to a car auction in 10 years, not since I moved out and stopped driving them. Then my mom added, he's been helping us with things around the house, he's such a blessing. I think my soul left my body for a second. A blessing. A word they've never once used for me. Not after I bought them groceries, not after I fixed their roof, not after I paid off their hospital bill last year. I tried to lighten the mood. So, are you a friend of the family? Daniel smiled. Actually, we matched on a volunteer network. They were looking for a young man willing to help out part-time. My eyebrows launched off my face. A volunteer network? My mom waved her hand like it wasn't a big deal. Oh, sweetie, you're always so busy. We didn't want to be a burden. A burden. That word hit me in the chest like a thrown brick. Because I had just gifted them a fully restored collectible that took 18 months of my life and nearly all my patience. And somehow, they'd still gone looking for a replacement son. Dad ushered Daniel outside to show him the convertible, my gift, while my mom pulled me aside. You should really get to know him, Marcus, he fits in here so naturally. I stared at her, trying not to let the anger spill over. He's not family, I said. Oh, honey, she whispered, touching my arm. Sometimes family isn't about blood, sometimes it's about who shows up. Who shows up? I paid their mortgage last month. I hired caregivers when Dad got pneumonia. I canceled vacations to drive them to appointments. And apparently I didn't show up. But a shiny stranger did. And the worst part? They weren't just replacing me emotionally. They were replacing me legally. Because the next sentence out of my mom's mouth made my stomach fall straight through the floor. We've been talking to a lawyer, she said casually, about making Daniel our power of attorney and updating some other documents. The world tilted. My parents weren't just adopting a new son. They were writing me out completely. I didn't react at first. My brain was doing that Windows 98 loading screen thing. trying to process the phrase. Power of attorney. My mom, meanwhile, kept talking like she was discussing weekend plans. Daniel's just so responsible, so attentive, you know, the kind of person we can trust to make decisions when we're gone or unable. I blinked. Mom, I've handled your finances for years. She nodded sympathetically, the way you nod at someone explaining they didn't make varsity. Oh honey, we just don't want to put pressure on you. Pressure. Right. That's why they'd secretly been interviewing replacement children. Through the window, I could see Daniel sitting behind the wheel of the convertible, my dad proudly showing him how to shift the manual. A private lesson. I in my car, that I restored, with my money. My chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me any of this? I asked. My mom shrugged. We didn't want to hurt your feelings. Oh, the irony. But then she gave me the final blow. Besides, Daniel actually listens to us. I felt it like a punch. I listen to you, I said, quieter than I meant to. You argue, Marcus, she corrected, as if explaining a math problem. When we say we need something, you insist on understanding it first. Daniel doesn't make things complicated, he just helps. She said it with pride. Pride for obedience. Pride for someone she'd known less than a month. Something snapped out. I walked outside. My dad barely looked up as Daniel revved the engine like a teenager showing off. Dad, I said, can I talk to you? He held up a finger without turning to me. Just a sec, son. And for a brief, humiliating moment, I wasn't sure which of us he meant. Daniel finally stepped out of the car, tossing me a polite smile like he was the homeowner, and I was the plumber. My dad crossed his arms. What's the problem? You gave him access to the car? Why not? He said. He appreciates it. There it was, the thing they never say out loud but always meant. You're not grateful enough, Marcus. You don't worship us the way we want. You question too much. You think too much. You don't behave like the son we imagined. I swallowed, the anger rising in my throat. What exactly are you hiring him for? We're not hiring him, my dad said sharply. He's helping because he cares. Not everything is transactional like your life. That one landed hard. Then Daniel, this man who had inserted himself into my family like malware, said softly, maybe we can all get along. I'm not trying to take anything from you. Except he was. Everything. I left before I said something I'd regret. But 2 days later, regret found me anyway. Because I got a phone call. An angry one. From my parents' lawyer, asking why I had suddenly tried to access the convertible's insurance documents. Documents that were no longer under my name. Documents that now listed a new co-owner. Daniel. The man I'd known for 48 hours. The man my parents had known for 4 weeks. They had given him half ownership of the car I restored for them, and somehow. That wasn't even the worst part. I drove straight to my parents' house, rehearsing every version of, "What the hell is wrong with you?" in progressively less polite tones. When I walked in, Daniel was already there. Of course he was, sitting at the kitchen table, drinking from my dad's favorite mug, laughing with my mother like this was some cozy sitcom and he'd been in the family since the pilot episode. My dad didn't even look surprised to see me. We need to talk, he said, like I was the one who'd done something insane. Why is Daniel co-owner of the convertible? I demanded. My mom set her teacup down gently, the way people do right before they say something unforgivable. Marcus, we just want things to be easier when we pass. You already have your own life. We don't want you burdened with our things. I gave you that car, I said. It wasn't a burden, Dad muttered. Gifts don't come with strings. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. This isn't strings, this is basic respect. Daniel cleared his throat, trying to sound soothing. Look, if it bothers you. I turned on him. You don't talk, this isn't your family. Silence. Then my mom said the words that cracked something inside me. He's been more of a son these past few weeks than you have in years. I laughed, actually laughed, the kind of laugh that sounds like it belongs in a thriller movie. Name one thing he's done. My mom brightened, eager to defend him. He set up our new Wi-Fi router. He fixed the door hinge. He brought us groceries when we mentioned we were low. Groceries. A hinge. A router. That's all it took to be a better son than the guy who'd spent half his adult life supporting them. Then my dad, never one to be outdone in the cruelty Olympics, added. And he doesn't correct us every time we get something wrong. He's patient. You always make us feel stupid. Oh, that was it. This wasn't about love. This was about compliance. About comfort. About the ease of someone who never pushed back, never asked questions, never expected them to grow or adapt or try. Daniel was simple. I wasn't, and they preferred simple. I felt the final thread snap. Okay, I said slowly. You want him? Fine, but you're going to hear this once. They stared at me as I stepped back, breathing hard. You gave away the only gift I ever wanted to give you, and you did it for someone who didn't exist a month ago. My mom rolled her eyes. Oh, don't be dramatic, no, I said, my voice shaking. Keep him, seriously, keep your new son. Then I walked out. I expected them to call after me. To follow me. To apologize. To say anything. They didn't. Instead, the door shut behind me, and I heard my dad say, Don't worry, Daniel, he'll calm down eventually. Spoiler, I would not. Because the next morning, something arrived in my mailbox that made everything click into place, and made me realize Daniel wasn't some innocent bystander. He'd been planning this from the beginning. The envelope was thick, official looking, and addressed to me in a handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a printed proposal from a nonprofit, one I'd never heard of, detailing a program called Adopt a Senior Family. Page 1. Daniel is listed as the volunteer caretaker assigned to my parents. Page 2. His duties include assistance with errands, transportation, and inheritance facilitation guidance. Inheritance facilitation guidance. The hell? Page 3 hit harder. Volunteer reports strained relationship between seniors and biological son. Recommends adjusting estate distribution to individuals who provide primary emotional support. My hands went numb. Reports, distribution, primary emotional support. Daniel had been filing reports about my parents. Evaluations. Recommendations. He wasn't just replacing me. He was building a case. I drove back to my parents' house. Again, this time with the folder in my hand. Daniel opened the door like he lived there. Marcus, hey, they're napping, maybe come be. I shoved the folder into his chest. He skimmed the top page, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, annoyance, maybe fear, before he tried to plaster on a calm expression. This is just paperwork, this is manipulation. I snapped out. He stepped back, lifting his hands. Look, your parents asked me to help them. They feel alone, they feel unsupported, they feel exactly what you've been encouraging them to feel. His jaw tightened. You think too highly of yourself. They reached out because they needed someone consistent. Translation: someone who didn't have boundaries. Someone who said yes to everything. Someone who would let them regress into helplessness so he could swoop in as the hero. And then, right then, my dad appeared in the hallway wearing the jacket I bought him for his birthday last year. What's going on? He asked Daniel. Not me. Daniel spoke first. He thinks I'm trying to take advantage of you. My dad's eyes hardened. Are you accusing him of something? After everything he's done for us this month? This month. That was the whole timeline. I'd been replaced in 4 weeks. I didn't back down. I have documentation showing he's pushing you to change your estate. My dad barked a laugh. Maybe we want to. And my mom stepped beside him, silently at first, before saying, Marcus, you've always been so busy with your life. Daniel is the son you wish you had. I finished. She didn't deny it. That hurt worse than I expected. Daniel shrugged. Maybe it's better if you take a step back. Let them decide who they want in their lives. My dad nodded. He's right. And it was in that moment, standing in the doorway of the house I grew up in, watching my parents side with a man they barely knew, that something shifted inside me. Find out if they wanted him, they could have him. But they were going to learn exactly what it cost to replace me. Because I wasn't just their son. I was their accountant, their emergency contact, their medical advocate, the guy who paid half their bills. And Daniel? He had no idea what he had just inherited. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't yell. Didn't argue. Didn't try to win them back. I simply drove home, opened my laptop, and began the most boring, methodical revenge any parent could ever fear. I resigned from every responsibility they had quietly dumped on me over the past decade. First, I emailed their insurance provider. Please remove me as authorized contact. I no longer manage my parents' accounts. Then the pharmacy. Remove my number from emergency notifications. Then the hospital. I will no longer be the default medical decision maker. Then the utilities. I am not the billing party. Cancel autopay immediately. Every system where I was the safety net, gone. By noon, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls, voicemails from unknown numbers. A text from my mom that simply read, "Why is the power off?" And a second one. "Do you know how to fix this?" Daniel doesn't. I didn't reply. 2 hours later. The car won't start. It's making a sound. Well, that happens when you don't maintain a 60-year-old engine. Then my dad left a voicemail, sounding irritated more than anything. Son, call me back. Daniel isn't familiar with the medical portal, and your mother's appointment is missing. I listened to that one twice. They had replaced me emotionally, but not functionally. They assumed Daniel came with a built-in user manual for their entire lives. He did not. But it gets better. That evening, I received a call from the hospital. Hi, Mr. Lawson? We're calling because we attempted to reach your parents regarding an urgent prescription refill, but Daniel, listed as their new power of attorney, didn't know how to verify their medical history. We need someone who understands their chart. I took a slow breath. They removed me. I said, You'll have to work with him. The nurse sighed. I see. Well, good luck to all of you. Translation: This is going to be a disaster. And it was. Because at 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from my dad that nearly made me laugh out loud. Can you explain something? Daniel thinks the convertible needs diesel. Diesel.INA 1969 gas engine. Beautiful. At 10:15 p.m., my mom tried next. Please answer us. Daniel says the insurance website won't load and we need to update something about the house. And finally, at 11:03 p.m., I got this masterpiece from Daniel himself. I'm trying to help them, but they're confused and upset. Can we talk? Oh no, Daniel.no, we cannot. You wanted to be the son? Congratulations. Here's the job. But the real explosion didn't happen until the next morning, when I got a call not from my parents, but from their lawyer, sounding panicked. Because overnight my parents had attempted to sign their new estate documents Daniel had influenced, and the lawyer had run into something he did not expect. Every piece of information Daniel provided was wrong, and every system my parents relied on, I had already stepped away from. They weren't just floundering, they were sinking fast. That's when the lawyer asked me a question that made me sit up straight. Marcus, did you know Daniel has a history of doing this to elderly clients? And that was the moment I realized, this wasn't just family drama. This was a setup. A professional one. And now, my parents weren't the only ones in danger. The lawyer lowered his voice like someone might be listening. Marcus, your parents never told you this. But Daniel wasn't their first volunteer caretaker. Silence on my end. 3 years ago, another one tried something similar, isolating them, pushing estate changes. They dismissed him before anything was finalized. But Daniel? He was recommended by the same volunteer network, and he's already inserted himself deeper than the last one. My stomach dropped. Are you saying he targets old people? I'm saying he targets lonely old people. The lawyer replied. And your parents are difficult to work with, but they're vulnerable to flattery, someone obedient, helpful, eager? It's a perfect storm. A long, cold realization settled over me. This wasn't an accident. Daniel hadn't stumbled into our family. He'd selected them. And when I walked away and stripped out my support, I hadn't just taught my parents a lesson, I'd exposed how dangerous their situation really was. Is anything legally binding yet? I asked. No, but Daniel is pushing them to sign next week, and once he's listed as financial agent, you won't be able to undo much without a legal battle. I thanked him and hung up, then sat there for a full minute, staring at nothing. I wasn't going to save my parents from their own stupidity. Truly, I wasn't. But this wasn't about stupidity anymore. This was elder exploitation. When I finally got up, I wasn't angry. I was focused. And when I drove back to their house that evening, it wasn't to reconcile, it was to confront. I didn't even knock. I walked in and found Daniel sitting at the dining table with a neat stack of printed forms in front of him. Estate amendments, power of attorney revisions, asset transfer instructions. He looked up with a practiced smile. Marcus, glad you came. Your parents and I were just discussing. I grabbed the papers, flipped through them, and dropped them back onto the table. Sit down, I said. Daniel blinked. I am sitting. Good, stay that way. My dad appeared from the hallway. Marcus, don't start. No, Dad. I said. I'm not starting a fight, I'm ending one. I turned back to Daniel. You've done this before, haven't you? Found a lonely older couple, inserted yourself, and nudged them toward handing you control. His face didn't change, but his eyes did, a tiny flicker. My role is to support them, he said calmly. If they choose to reward that, it's their decision. I leaned forward. You're not supporting them, you're grooming them. My mom gasped. Marcus. But she didn't tell me I was wrong. Daniel folded his hands. You're emotional, I understand, But your parents feel neglected. No. I cut in. They feel flattered. You're giving them dopamine hits of validation. That's not care, it's manipulation. Dad snapped. He's been more helpful in 1 month than you have in years. I looked him dead in the eyes. And how much did that help cost you? Because I guarantee you'll find out. Daniel exhaled slowly. If you're done, Marcus, I'd appreciate it if you let us continue our meeting. Sure, I said, but you might want to call your volunteer coordinator first. He frowned. Why? Because I sent them, and the nonprofit board, a packet of your activities, including the reports you filed about my parents, including the false statements, and including the 3 other seniors you've worked with who filed complaints. For the first time, his composure cracked. Small, but real. My dad looked between us, confused. Complaints? What complaints? I stayed calm. Your new son has a pattern of exploiting older people for financial gain, and whether you believe me or not, they do. Right then, Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced down, his face strained. It's the program director. He murmured. My mom looked terrified. Daniel, what's happening? I stepped back, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. Oh, I said casually. You should answer that. Something tells me Daniel won't be free to help you much longer. And the best part? I wasn't wrong. Because the very next morning, everything blew up. The next morning, I woke up to a string of frantic voicemails. None from Daniel, all from my parents. The first was my mother, breathless. Marcus, something happened. Daniel's program suspended him. They said you filed a report. Why would you do that? The second was my dad. Angrier. Son, they're saying Daniel manipulated us. This is ridiculous. Call me back. The third was shorter, shakier. He left. My mom whispered. He packed up his things and left in the middle of the night. We don't know how to access anything. Our accounts, the medical portal, the bills. Of course they didn't. By noon, their lawyer confirmed everything. The nonprofit had launched a formal investigation. Daniel was barred from all volunteer work pending review. 2 former clients had already come forward. And the estate documents? Null, unfiled, unusable. That should have been satisfying. But the truth is, when I finally went over to check on them, it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like walking into a house held together by duct tape and denial. My dad sat at the kitchen table, staring at the convertible keys like they'd personally betrayed him. My mom looked 10 years older, her hands shaking as she flipped through mails she didn't know how to interpret. They weren't villains in that moment. They weren't scheming. They were scared. My dad cleared his throat. We thought he cared. I nodded. That's the point. People like him make you feel special so you don't notice what they're taking. My mom's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us sooner? I stared at her, stunned. Mom, I tried. You didn't want to hear anything that challenged how good he made you feel. Silence settled over the room, heavy but honest. Finally, my dad pushed the keys toward me. The car. It should have never been anyone's but yours. I didn't pick them up, not yet. Instead, I sat down across from them. I'm not your replacement caretaker, I said. I'm not your employee, I'm your son. If we're going to fix this, it has to start there. For once, they didn't argue. For once, they listened, and maybe it wasn't forgiveness. Maybe it wasn't healing. But it was a beginning. As I left, my mom called after me, voice trembling. Marcus, thank you for showing up. Funny, all it took for them to see me was losing the man they tried to replace me with. But I'll take it. Because this time, I'm showing up on my terms.